The giant crystal halls of Xerion Prime sparkled with rainbow colors as aliens from 12 different worlds gathered for their meeting. Ambassador Kethvar stood tall in the center, his long blue body casting strange shadows on the floor. His species looked like tall, thin humans but with forearms and skin that changed colors when they talked. "Friends from across the galaxy," Kethvar said, his voice making musical sounds that the translation machines turned into words. "Today we talk about a new species we found. They live on the third planet around a yellow star. They call themselves humans." The other aliens leaned forward with interest. Veltara from the Altarian world made her fish-like scales glow brighter. She had big round eyes and could talk with her mind, but she preferred to speak out loud during meetings. "What makes these humans special, Ambassador?" Kethavar's forearms moved as he talked, and his skin turned a light purple, which meant he was amused. "Oh, they are not special at all. That is what makes them funny. Listen to this. They send radio messages into space telling stories about how great they are at fighting wars." Soft laughing sounds filled the room. The aliens made different noises when they found something funny. Some clicked, some whistled, and others made their bodies glow in quick flashes. "They claim," Kethvar continued, "that they have never lost a war when their survival was in danger. Can you believe that? These tiny creatures think they are great warriors." Commander Thys, who looked like a large lizard walking on two legs, flicked his long tongue out. This was how his people showed they thought something was silly. "What do they fight with? Sticks and stones?" "Mostly," Kethvar replied, making his skin turn even more purple. "They throw metal rocks at each other, very fast. They make big explosions with chemicals. Some of their weapons still use fire. Fire, like cavemen." The laughter got louder. Dr. Zinthara appeared next to the speaking platform. She was not really there, just a blue see-through image made of light. She was the smartest scientist in the galaxy and knew everything about different alien species. "I studied these humans very carefully," Dr. Zinthara said, her image flickering as she looked at her notes. "They are very ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They cannot read minds. They cannot make themselves invisible. They cannot even live very long, only about 80 of their years." "So why are we wasting time talking about them?" asked a voice from the back. It came from one of the constructors. Giant robots made of living metal who built amazing machines. Dr. Zinthara's image smiled. "Because they do something very strange. When most species face a hopeless situation, they give up or run away. This is smart and logical. But humans, they do the opposite. The more hopeless things get, the more stubborn they become." "Explain." "This strange behavior," requested Elder Zormak. He was very old and wise, with purple skin covered in glowing spots that showed his emotions. "Well," Dr. Zinthara continued, "I watched recordings of their wars. When their enemies outnumbered them 10 to 1, they did not surrender. When their cities were burning, they did not flee. Instead, they got angry and fought harder. Their brains seemed to be broken in a very specific way." Kethvar nodded eagerly. "Yes, and listen to this saying they have. The difficult we do right away, the impossible just takes a little longer." They actually believed this nonsense. The whole room erupted in laughter again. Some aliens were laughing so hard they started changing colors rapidly. Others were making high-pitched whistling sounds. "They also have another saying," Kethvar added, trying to control his own laughter. "When someone tells them something cannot be done, they say, 'Hold my beer and watch this.' We are not sure what beer is, but apparently it is very important to them." Commander Thys wiped tears from his large lizard eyes. "These humans sound like the most foolish species in the galaxy. What threat level should we assign them?" "Category 7. Harmless curiosities," Kethvar answered immediately. "They might be entertaining to watch, but they could never threaten anyone important. Their biggest weapons could barely scratch our smallest ships." Dr. Zinthara nodded in agreement. "I recommend we ignore them completely. In a few thousand years, they will probably destroy themselves fighting over resources or territory. Most primitive species do." The vote was quick and unanimous. Every alien in the room agreed that humans were not worth worrying about. They were just another primitive species that would eventually disappear. As the meeting moved on to discuss more important things like trade routes and mining rights, none of the great alien minds noticed something small floating in the darkness beyond. Their solar system, a tiny human probe no bigger than a refrigerator, had been listening to every word they said. The probe recorded everything, then quietly began its long journey back toward a small blue planet where creatures called humans were just beginning to reach for the stars. The message it carried would change everything, but the aliens in their crystal palace had no idea what was coming. They had made the oldest mistake in the universe. They had underestimated someone they did not understand. The mining colony on Tuol, planet Kepler 442c, had been running smoothly for 3 years. Giant machines dug deep into the ground every day, pulling out valuable metals and crystals. Supervisor Qualthek, a green-skinned alien with tentacles for arms, watched the daily reports on his computer screen while drinking his morning coffee substitute. Everything was normal until he saw one line that made his blood freeze. Deep drilling has found a strange empty space 47 kilometers underground. The space looks like it was built by someone. Qualthek dropped his cup. In all his years of mining, he had never seen anything like this. The planet was supposed to be empty of life. The surveys had confirmed it 3 times before they started digging. 6 hours later, mining platform 7 disappeared. Not destroyed, not damaged. It was just gone like it had never existed. The platform had been there in the morning with 50 workers operating the big drilling machines. By afternoon, there was only empty ground where it used to be. The emergency alarm started, screaming across the colony. Dr. Venzera, the chief geologist, ran into the control room with her tablet computer showing scary readings. "The ground is moving," she told Qualthek, her voice shaking. "Something huge is moving around deep underground. The seismic sensors are going crazy." Before Qualthek could answer, Platform 12 sent out a desperate radio message. "Emergency. Emergency. Something is coming up through the solid rock. It's moving through stone like it's made of air. They look like—" The message cut off suddenly. Within hours, emergency meetings were happening all across the galaxy. The greatest alien minds gathered to figure out what was attacking the mining colony. Elder Zormak, the oldest and wisest alien in the galaxy, spoke in a whisper that made everyone afraid. "Devourers," he said. "The ancient enemy has returned." The briefing that followed painted a terrifying picture. Devourers were ancient monsters that ate entire planets from the inside out. They could walk through solid rock like it was empty space. They fed on the life energy of living beings, sucking out souls like a vampire drinks blood. Long ago, they had destroyed 12 different civilizations before mysteriously disappearing from the galaxy. "We must evacuate everyone immediately," ordered Fleet Admiral Nexthari, the greatest military commander in the galaxy. "Then we destroy the planet from space." "That won't work," Dr. Venzera said, shaking her head. "They've already spread too deep into the planet's core. If we crack the surface with our weapons, we'll just set them free to attack other worlds." What happened next was the greatest military operation in galactic history. The Zephyrian war fleet arrived first, bringing ships the size of cities armed with plasma cannons that could melt mountains. They fired everything they had at the planet. The creatures just absorbed the energy and became stronger. The Altarian, mind warriors, came next. These were aliens who could move objects with their thoughts and read minds from across solar systems. They tried to attack the creatures mentally. The Devourers turned their own psychic powers against them, leaving half the warriors in comas. Finally, the constructors sent their ultimate weapons, machines that could bend reality itself and make impossible things happen. The Devourers learned how to copy this technology in just a few hours. For 7 days, the finest military forces in the galaxy threw everything they had at the monsters. Nothing worked. The creatures adapted to every weapon, every strategy, every attempt to stop them. The planet's surface began to crack and heave as more Devourers emerged from deep underground. On the 7th day, as the last evacuation ships prepared to flee, the long-range sensors detected something impossible. A small group of ships was approaching at speeds that should have torn them apart. "This is Captain Park Jun-ho of the UES Determination to all galactic forces," came a calm voice over the radio. "We got your distress call. Mind if we lend a hand?" Admiral Nexithari stared at his screen in disbelief. The approaching ships looked primitive and crude compared to galactic technology. They were powered by simple fusion engines and covered in thick metal armor. Most shocking of all, they were human ships. "Human vessel," Admiral Nexithari replied. "You need to stay away. This is an extinction-level threat. These creatures have defeated our best forces." "Copy that, Admiral," Captain Park answered without any fear in his voice. "We've dealt with extinction-level threats before. All ships, prepare for combat drop. Let's show these things how humans say hello." The human ships did something that made every alien commander gasp in shock. Instead of staying safely in space to fight, they aimed their ships directly at the planet's surface and accelerated to maximum speed. "They're committing suicide," Admiral Nexithari shouted. But Dr. Zinthara, watching all the data carefully, realized something different. "No," she whispered. "They're doing something we never thought of. They're taking the fight directly to the enemy." As the human ships screamed through the atmosphere like falling meteors, Captain Park's voice came over the radio one more time. "All units, remember your training. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Time to remind the galaxy why. You never count out the human race." The real battle was about to begin. Captain Park Jun-ho stood on the bridge of his ship as it dove toward the planet like a flaming arrow. The hull glowed red-hot from the speed, and everything shook violently. But his crew worked calmly at their stations. They had done this kind of crazy mission before. "What's our situation down there?" Captain Park asked his weapons officer. Lieutenant Kim So-min looked up from her glowing computer screen. 17 monster emergence points confirmed, Captain. They're coming up through solid rock between 2 and 15 kilometers deep. The alien forces have been fighting for 7 days with no success. And our secret weapon? Ready to deploy, sir. Dr. Lee Min-soo's science team figured out the creature's weakness. They need to stay connected to their home dimension to keep their ghost-like powers. Break that connection and they become solid like everything else. Captain Park nodded grimly. Time to do this the hard way. All ships, crash landing protocol. What happened next shocked every alien watching from space. The human ships deliberately smashed into the planet at full speed. But seconds before impact, small escape pods shot out carrying assault teams directly into the underground caves where the monsters were strongest. Admiral Nexithari watched in horror from his command ship in orbit. "They're killing themselves," he said in disbelief. Dr. Zinthara's holographic image appeared beside him, studying the data streaming up from the planet. "No," she said slowly. "They're doing something completely different from normal warfare. The first human soldier to meet a devourer was Sergeant Choi Jung-soo from the 3rd Underground Combat Unit. The creature appeared through solid stone like a ghost, its body shifting between being real and not real. It reached out with energy tentacles to suck out his life force the way it had done to thousands of other victims. Sergeant Choi's response was recorded by his helmet camera and would later be shown to military students across the galaxy. "Well, that's ugly," he said calmly, then fired his weapon. But this was not an ordinary gun. Human scientists had built special weapons just for fighting these creatures. The bullets contained unstable dimensional crystals that forced the monsters to become solid and real. The devourer screamed as the exotic ammunition hit it, making it unable to phase through matter. Choi's second shot was loaded with regular explosives, which blew a hole through the creature's center. "Control, this is Choi," he reported over his radio. "Good news. The ugly ones die when you make them solid first." All across the planet, similar fights were happening. The humans had done something no other species had tried. They had studied their enemy and built weapons specifically to counter their abilities. The guns were simple and crude, but they worked perfectly against creatures that could walk through walls. But the real surprise came when the devourers tried their main attack. The psychic drain that paralyzed victims before, feeding on them. The same mental attack that had defeated the galaxy's greatest warriors simply bounced off human minds. "Impossible," Dr. Zinthara whispered. as she watched the biological data. Their brain patterns are too chaotic and unpredictable. The psychic attacks can't find stable neural pathways to latch onto. On the planet's surface, Corporal Yoon Hye-jin was proving another point about human tactics. She was surrounded by 3 devourers that had learned to resist her dimensional weapons. Instead of panicking or calling for help, she calmly pulled the pins from her remaining grenades and smiled. "Hey, monsters," she shouted. "Ever hear of a nuclear grenade?" The explosion was bright enough to see from space. Private Nam Woo-bin found himself trapped in a collapsed tunnel with his unit, facing a pack of devourers that had adapted to all their weapons. Most species would have surrendered or despaired. Instead, Nam looked around at the mining equipment scattered everywhere and grinned. "Guys," he said to his squad, "who wants to see what happens when you feed a devourer a mining laser designed to cut through solid rock?" The creatures had never encountered enemies who treated hopeless situations as puzzles to solve, rather than reasons to give up. Major Kang Sun-ho, the ground commander, received reports from 17 different battle zones. His forces were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy that could appear anywhere without warning. Any reasonable military commander would have ordered a retreat. "All units," he broadcast. "The aliens couldn't handle these things because they fought smart. We're going to fight stupid. Use everything: weapons, tools, rocks, your bare hands, if necessary. These creatures have been bullying the galaxy for too long. Time to show them what humans do to bullies." The tide of battle began to turn. Wherever the devourers expected logical military tactics, they encountered human creativity. Instead, soldiers used mining equipment as weapons, turned collapsed tunnels into traps, and somehow found ways to fight effectively even when their ammunition ran out. Dr. Zinthera updated her files on human psychology as she watched. Species exhibits adaptive problem-solving under extreme stress. When conventional solutions fail, they invent new ones using available materials. This trait appears to be universal among the population. From orbit, Admiral Nexthari opened a communication channel. "Human ground forces, your tactics are unprecedented. How do you maintain unit cohesion under these conditions?" Major Kang's reply was immediate. "Simple, Admiral, we don't fight to win. We fight because someone has to, and today that someone is us." The galaxy was learning that humans defined victory very differently than everyone else. Captain Park Jun-ho stood in what used to be Mining Platform 12's control room, now serving as the human command center. Holographic displays showed red dots across the planet where his scattered forces were fighting underground battles. The war had been going on for 3 days straight. "Give me the situation report," Captain Park ordered. Major Choi Woo-sung looked up from his tactical computer, his face dirty and tired. "We've killed about half of the creatures, but they're learning too fast. Our dimensional weapons are getting less effective every hour." "What about Operation Earthquake?" Park asked. "Engineering teams have reached 7 of the 9 target locations," reported Colonel Kim Yerin, the mission's chief engineer. "But Captain, if we go through with this plan, the entire planet's surface will collapse. Everyone down there will be buried alive, including us," Park said quietly. The alien forces, watching from space, couldn't believe what they were seeing. Human engineering teams were placing massive explosive charges at specific points throughout the planet's rocky foundation. Dr. Zinthara had never seen anything like it. "They're not trying to kill the creatures," she realized with growing horror. "They're trying to bury them alive under the entire planet." Admiral Nexthari opened a communication channel. "Captain Park, your current plan will destroy the planet's surface completely. Your people will not survive." Park's answer came without any hesitation. "Admiral, sometimes you have to break some eggs to make breakfast. We have one chance to stop these things from spreading to other worlds. But your soldiers will do what needs to be done," Park interrupted. "That's what humans do." The final phase began at sunrise on the 4th day. Human forces started moving deeper underground, driving the remaining devourers ahead of them like hunters herding dangerous animals. At every level, they left behind gifts, seismic charges designed to turn solid rock into dust. Sergeant Lee Kyung-min led the rear guard, his unit moving through caves that glowed with otherworldly energy. Behind them came the devourers, their forms shifting between dimensions as they chased the retreating humans. "All units, this is Control," came Colonel Kim's voice over the radio. "Prepare for some serious earth moving." The first explosives went off at depth level 47. The planet's crust, already weakened by decades of mining, began to shift and crack. The second wave of charges triggered massive cave-ins that sealed entire underground systems. The third wave sent shockwaves through the planet's core itself, but it was the fourth wave that really made the ground shake. "All charges fired," Colonel Kim reported. "Seismic chain reaction in progress." The planet convulsed like a living thing, in pain. Mining shafts that had been dug over 200 years collapsed in seconds. Entire mountain ranges shifted as the foundation gave way in a carefully planned symphony of destruction. The Devourers, creatures that had eaten worlds for thousands of years, found themselves trapped in a tomb of collapsing rock. From space, the death of Kepler 432c looked like the end of the world. Massive cracks split the surface like a broken egg. Great clouds of dust rose into the atmosphere, hiding the planet in a brown shroud. But deep beneath the chaos in reinforced bunkers that human engineers had somehow built in just 4 days, life signs still registered on the sensors. "Impossible," Admiral Nexithari breathed. "How did they survive that?" Captain Park's voice crackled through the interference and dust clouds. "Turns out humans are pretty good at digging foxholes when we need to be. Request immediate pickup. We've got wounded down here who need medical attention." Private Oh Tae-kyung had been in the deepest bunker when the charges went off. The explosions had shaken him like a toy in a giant's hand, but the reinforced walls held. Around him, other soldiers were checking their equipment and treating minor injuries. "Well," said Corporal Bae Soo-jin, brushing dust off her uniform, "that was louder than I expected." "Did it work?" asked Private O. Above them, the scanners showed no movement from the buried Devourers. The creatures were trapped under billions of tons of collapsed rock, unable to phase through the unstable rubble that kept shifting and settling. "Mission accomplished," came the report from the surface teams. "The monsters are buried so deep they'll never dig out." As rescue ships began, arriving to evacuate the surviving humans, Dr. Zinthara started writing new notes about human psychology. Her report would read, "When facing impossible odds, humans do not ask, 'Can we win?' They ask, 'What are we willing to sacrifice to win?' This mental approach appears to be their greatest tactical advantage." Lieutenant Commander An Ji-hoon, leading one of the evacuation teams, looked around at the destroyed planet. "Command, the surface is completely wrecked. This place will never be habitable again." "Copy that," replied Captain Park. "Mark it as a planetary tomb. Nothing gets in or out without our permission." The galaxy's most advanced military forces had failed to stop the Devourers using their best technology and tactics. A group of humans, with simple weapons and a willingness to sacrifice everything, had succeeded by doing something no one else had thought of. They had weaponized an entire planet. The ground had shaken, and when it stopped, the monsters were gone. 3 months after the battle at Kepler 442c, Ambassador Keithvar stood once again before the Galactic Council, but everything had changed. The great crystal chamber was quiet and serious instead of filled with laughter. The same aliens who had mocked humans now sat forward in their seats, paying careful attention. "Honored friends," Keithvar began, his voice no longer musical with amusement, "I stand before you today to formally change our classification of the human species." Elder Zormak of the Altarian people spoke first. His glowing spots were dim, with respect instead of bright with laughter. "The events at Kepler 442c have taught us much. Our greatest mind warriors study the human battle recordings every day. These creatures showed abilities we never expected. Commander Thys, the large lizard-like alien, nodded his scaly head. Their willingness to die for victory goes against all normal military thinking. Yet it worked when our advanced strategies failed." Dr. Zinthara's blue holographic form appeared beside the speaking platform. "I have completely rewritten my analysis of human psychology. They possess what I can only call useful craziness. The ability to function normally in situations that would paralyze other species with fear. Explain this better, requested the constructor representative, its metal voice echoing through the chamber. When most species face certain death, their survival instincts make them freeze up or run away, Dr. Zinthera continued. This is logical and smart. But humans seem to skip this step entirely. They look at impossible situations and treat them like difficult puzzles to solve. Admiral Nexthari, attending the meeting from his flagship, added his own thoughts. Their tactical creativity is unlike anything we've seen. When their weapons failed, they made new ones from mining equipment. When that failed, they used the planet itself as a weapon. Most amazing of all, they kept working together as a team even when everything was falling apart. Kethvar nodded seriously. Which brings us to the important question. I propose that humanity be immediately promoted to Category 1, potential allies with full membership rights and access to our defensive technologies. The vote was unanimous and quick, though several aliens privately wondered if they should have chosen Category 0, never make them angry. As the council meeting was ending, a priority message arrived from the human fleet now stationed at the edge of council space. Captain Park Junho's image appeared on the main display screen, wearing new insignia that marked him as the first human coalition fleet commander. Galactic Council, he began formally. We've received reports of hostile activity in the Vega system. Several colonies have gone silent. We're requesting permission to investigate. Elder Zormak leaned forward. Captain Park, our long-range sensors show at least 40 enemy ships in that system. Your fleet has only 12 vessels. Captain Park smiled the same calm smile he had worn when diving toward a planet full of monsters. Elder Zormak, with respect, we've fought worse odds before. Besides, we've learned a few new tricks since Kepler 442c. What kind of tricks? Asked Commander Thys, genuinely curious. Well, Park replied, we've been studying your technology and mixing it with our own methods. Turns out human stubbornness and alien science make a pretty good combination. Dr. Zinthara's holographic form flickered with interest. Captain, your species continues to surprise us. How do you maintain such confidence when facing unknown threats? Park's expression became more serious. Doctor, it's simple. Someone has to stand between the monsters and the innocent people. Today, that someone is us. We didn't ask for the job, but we'll do it anyway. Admiral Nexthari spoke up from his ship. Captain, you have full authorization to proceed. Coalition. Reinforcements will follow as soon as possible. Copy that, Admiral, Park replied. We're heading out now. Oh, and one more thing. If anyone in the Vega system is listening, this is the human fleet. We're coming to help. Hold on. As the transmission ended, the council chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Finally, Elder Zormak spoke what everyone was thinking. 6 months ago, we laughed at stories of human military prowess. We thought they were primitive and harmless. Now they are our allies, possibly our protectors. Dr. Zinthera began updating her files one more time. Her new entry would read, humans do not fight wars to prove they are strong. They fight because they believe someone must. This fundamental difference in motivation makes them perhaps the most dangerous allies and the most terrifying enemies in the known galaxy. Kethvar looked around at the assembled delegates. My friends, we have learned an important lesson. Power is not always about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. Sometimes it is about having the will to use whatever you have, no matter the cost. As the council members began to leave, heading back to their home worlds, each carried the same thought. The galaxy had changed forever. The species they had dismissed as harmless curiosities had become the ones everyone else would call when the monsters came knocking. In the depths of space, 12 human ships accelerated toward the Vega system, their crews ready to face whatever waited for them. Behind them, the greatest civilizations in the galaxy watched and learned what it meant to never give up. The humans had proven something that would echo across the stars. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe is simply refusing to quit.